They weren't just praying to the gods of wealth, they were summoning them. In temples, caverns, and sacred chambers across the ancient world, mystics and initiates didn't ask for prosperity, they embodied it. Through secret rituals, they entered altered states where they didn't just visualize wealth, they became the source of it. Among these ancients, one thing was understood about prosperity. It arrived not simply to the most cunning or the smartest, but those who were best at channeling the energy of abundance. This wasn't superstition. It was spiritual technology used to transfer an ordinary human into a living current of divine wealth. These ancient systems were designed to unlock a vibration so potent that reality itself had no choice but to respond. Lost to history, we're going to resurrect these tactics in this video. Modern science is finally beginning to catch up. What it reveals will shake everything you thought you knew about wealth, identity, and manifestation. This is the sacred ritual mystics use to summon abundance, and as it's revealed, it will feel like remembering an age-old skill. By the end of this video, you'll understand these rituals well enough to use them to transform your own life. This process isn't just about visualization, it's an identity alchemy. In the ancient temples of Tibet and India, select practitioners used a practice now referred to as deity yoga, but it wasn't yoga the way we think of it. It was a method for merging your consciousness with a god, usually one tied to abundance, prosperity, and power. And once that merging happened, you no longer operated from your limited self. You were tapping into a field as the deity itself. They would sit in silence, breathing deeply, slowing the body, not to relax, but to prepare the vessel. Then they would call forth the image of the god of wealth. They'd visualize golden skin, regal posture, radiant eyes, coins flowing from open palms. They didn't just see it, they became it. This was the moment the old identity cracked, and a new one took over. And the idea was simple. The fastest way to attract abundance isn't to chase it, it's to become the energy it responds to. These rituals were designed to shift your internal essence into one that the universe can't ignore. They weren't imagining richness or affirming wealth. They were embodying the divine vibration of prosperity to the point where every thought, movement, and decision was soaked in it. And they believed and proved that when you did this consistently, the world changed around you. Opportunities appeared, gold flowed, needs vanished, not because they begged, but because they aligned so fully with the archetype of wealth, reality recalibrated to match it. High in the mountains of Tibet, far from trade routes and gold markets, monks were performing one of the most powerful abundance rituals on earth. They were channeling gods of wealth, not symbolically, but energetically, consciously, and completely. The deity was called Shambhala, a radiant figure draped in gold with jewels at his feet and nectar pouring from his hands. Through their meditative ritual, these practitioners merged with this deity. Every detail mattered: his color, his posture, gaze, even the way his energy moved. By holding on to this essence, they initiated a transfer of identity. They would sit in deep meditation, repeating his mantra over and over until the edges of the self blurred. They were stepping into the archetype of infinite generosity and prosperity. The belief was simple: when you fully embody wealth consciousness, the universe must oblige, because the outer reality we perceive is downstream from the essence we project. But this wasn't a purely selfish or greedy endeavor. Shambhala's power only flows when used to bless others. The more you gave, attention, service, resources, the stronger the energy became. In fact, practitioners were told that hoarding blocked the god's energy. Abundance came to practitioners not to be kept, but to be circulated. That was the hidden wisdom. You don't attract wealth by wanting it. You attract it by becoming the kind of being it wants to move through. Shambhala wasn't a god who rewarded greed. He was a deity of sharing, of flow, generosity, and energetic openness. His power didn't respond to clinging or craving. It responded to alignment. Practitioners understood that true wealth wasn't something you owned. It was something you became a channel for. And the moment you tried to trap it or to hoard it, the current would begin to dry up. Because wealth in its purest form isn't meant to sit still. It's meant to move. In this tradition, giving was a form of invocation. Every act of generosity, feeding someone, making an offering, sharing resources, wasn't just good karma. It was an activation. It was saying to the universe, I'm not a container, I'm a conductor. Shambhala's essence wasn't in accumulation, it was in distribution. And so the more you gave without fear, without attachment, the more you proved yourself capable of carrying his energy. Generosity was the test, circulation was the key. This flips modern thinking on its head. We're taught to accumulate, to hoard, but Shambhala's law was different. Abundance multiplies in motion. When you give from a place of embodiment, not lack, you demonstrate the mastery over the illusion of scarcity. You're not begging for wealth to enter. You're showing it that you're already in rhythm with its nature. Because the truth is, abundance doesn't seek owners, it seeks vessels. And when you become that, wealth moves not just to you, but through you. Moving to ancient India, a similar practice emerged. Here, wealth wasn't seen as a goal, it was a force, a living current of energy, personified as the goddess Lakshmi. She wasn't just worshipped, she was invited to dwell inside you. Through precise rituals, chants, and meditative embodiment, practitioners didn't just honor Lakshmi, they became a vehicle for her. Tantric practitioners used a practice called nyasa, where different parts of the body were charged with divine energy. As they chanted mantras, they would touch specific areas, the forehead, chest, stomach, mentally installing the power of Lakshmi into their own being. This was how they embodied the deity. Her beauty, magnetism, and wealth-attracting power weren't just admired, they were transferred to the practitioner. And then there was Kubera, the god of material riches and hidden treasures. In some texts, Kubera isn't just invoked, he's summoned into the practitioner's energetic body. His rituals often required intense focus, offerings, and symbolic visualization, until his presence was said to position itself in the heart of the practitioner. Once this happened, the devotee didn't need to seek opportunity, it flowed to them. It was believed that Kubera's wealth couldn't be formed in the world, it had to be unlocked from within. And the most powerful principle behind it all, you're not separate from the gods. They live in you, waiting for embodiment. These rituals weren't about pleasing Lakshmi or Kubera. They were about realigning your identity to match their nature, so that the outer world had no choice but to respond. Those who achieved the most prosperity were understood not to be the most savvy business people, but the most devoted practitioners and the most skilled at channeling the energy of abundance through deity embodiment. In ancient Egypt, wealth wasn't a number in a ledger. It was a divine force called Hika. Today, people translate Hika as magic, but that word misses the mark. Hika wasn't superstition. It was the science of activating divine power inside the human body. And it was used by initiates to channel the gods directly. Egyptian priests didn't stand before statues hoping for blessings. They underwent complex rituals designed to merge their identity with deities like Isis or Osiris. Through incantation, visualization, and breathwork, they believed the god would enter their being not metaphorically, but literally, as a kind of energetic possession. The moment it happened, they were no longer themselves. They were acting, speaking, and manifesting as the god. Once a priest was inhabited by Isis, he could speak healing into existence. Once one merged with Osiris, the forces of death and rebirth bent around them. In Egyptian consciousness, gods didn't exist to be worshipped. They existed to be embodied. And when it came to abundance, the act of merging with divine forces wasn't about hoping for gold to fall from the sky. It was about reclaiming one's divine authority over the material realm. In their temple rites, the practitioner didn't say, "Please provide." They said, I am the provider. I am the channel. I am the force through which the wealth flows." Even their temples were built to reflect this truth. Entering the inner sanctum was a transformation. Each chamber represented a stage of becoming, from seeker to initiate to God. And at the center of it all was the belief that Hika lives within you, and when you awaken it, reality bends in your favor. In the temples and underground chambers of ancient Greece and Rome, a different kind of ritual was taking place. One not for the masses, but for initiates, the mystery schools. And at their core was the same secret found in Tibet, India, and Egypt. Become the god, and the world becomes yours. Within rites devoted to Hermes, Dionysus, and Plutus, the god of wealth, initiates would undergo a complete breakdown of ego. Through chants, wine, music, dance, and meditation, their human self would begin to dissolve, and in its place, the god would rise. Hermes was the god of commerce, cleverness, and persuasion. Dionysus, the ecstatic force of liberation and raw creative energy. Plutus, the blindfolded god who poured wealth indiscriminately into the world. When an initiate merged with one of these archetypes, they acquired more than belief. They acquired traits, confidence, boldness, magnetism, luck. These rites were precision tools for tuning the nervous system to divine frequency. When they said someone was possessed by a god, it wasn't a curse. It was power in its purest form. The practitioner would speak with more certainty, walk with more purpose. Doors opened, influence expanded. Even Rome's elite were rumored to undergo private rituals to channel Fortuna, the goddess of chance and luck. Coins bore her image. Entire philosophies were built around becoming favorable to Fortuna. In every tradition, the message echoes: you want wealth? Stop chasing it. Become what it obeys. Everything we've talked about, channeling deities, shifting identity, embodying abundance, it may sound mystical, ancient, or unbelievable, but modern science is finally catching up. And what it's revealing is this: your identity isn't fixed, and it's the key to changing your material reality. Let's start with Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's become well known for teaching people how to change their lives by becoming someone new through a transformation of consciousness. His research shows that when people enter deep meditative states and embody new identities, their neural pathways, hormone signals, and even genetic expression begin to shift. His phrase: you can't create a new reality with the same personality. Then there's Dr. Andrew Newberg, a neuroscientist who spent decades studying the brain during mystical experiences. What he found is that when people enter deep states of meditation, chanting, or visualization, just like in ancient rituals, the brain's sense of self dissolves, and something new takes over. From a clinical perspective, they're not imagining God. They're experiencing what feels like becoming one. In their book, Altered Traits, scientists Daniel Goleman and Richard Davidson spent decades studying long-term meditators, monks, yogis, and spiritual practitioners to figure out what happens when the mind is trained through ritual and inner focus. What they found was staggering. Deep meditation doesn't just calm you, it rewires and restructures your brain. They identified people whose baseline emotional reactivity had vanished, whose compassion centers were supercharged, and whose attention was so stable it bordered on superhuman. These weren't temporary states. They were altered traits, permanent upgrades to the human system. But why does this matter for abundance? Because when you're no longer a prisoner of stress, lack, and fear, when your nervous system is radiating coherence and presence, you stop chasing outcomes. You start pulling them in. Goleman and Davidson's research proves what ancient mystics lived every day. When you change your inner state, your outer world has to follow. So think about it. When an initiate in ancient Egypt embodied Osiris, when a monk became Jambala, when a devotee called Lakshmi into their heart, they were entering a neurological and energetic state that today's science is just beginning to validate. They were installing new traits through ritualized identity shifting. And in a reality governed by resonance and vibration, that's all it takes. Because in the end, your external life doesn't follow your wishes. It follows your identity. And the ancients understood, if you change your world, you change who you are. So how can you put this knowledge into practice today to transform your reality? You don't need a temple, you don't need a statue, you don't need any incense or magical words. What you need is presence, intention, and a willingness to drop who you think you are and step into who you're meant to become. This is your ritual, and if you do it with full focus, your life will begin to shift. Step 1, prepare the field. Find a quiet space, sit comfortably, breathe deeply. The goal is to calm the mind and body until they become still. Inhale deeply and hold. Then exhale slowly. Let each breath take you deeper. With each exhale, let your identity loosen. Step 2, choose the archetype. Now, choose the god of wealth you wish to channel. It can be Shambhala, Lakshmi, Kubera, or an image your own mind creates. What matters is the feeling. See them standing behind you, glowing, radiating abundance, power, stability, generosity. What do they look like? What do they wear? How do they hold their body? What would it feel like to be them? Step 3, merge. Let the boundary between you and the god dissolve. Feel their posture become your posture, their energy filling your chest, your spine, your breath. This isn't imagination. It's about embodiment. You're now the god of wealth. If a mantra helps, repeat it quietly. I am divine abundance. I am the source. Wealth flows from me. Or use the ancient mantras if they resonate. Let the mantra ride with your breath. Let the image deepen. Don't think, feel. Step 4, radiate. Now shift. Imagine wealth not coming to you, but flowing from you. Golden light pours from your palms, your chest, your eyes. Gold, energy, ideas, opportunities, radiating outward. You're not a receiver, you're a generator. You're the magnet, the source, the center of abundance in your life. Hold that state for as long as you can. Feel it like it's already done. Step 5, anchor in return. Before you open your eyes, say this. This is who I am now. Carry that energy into the day. Speak as the god would. Walk like them. Make decisions from their mind. This isn't a ritual you leave behind. It's one you carry into reality. And the ritual doesn't end when you open your eyes. That's the beginner's mistake, believing the magic lives only in the meditation. But in truth, the ritual is a doorway, not a destination. Once you've embodied the god of wealth in practice, the next step is to walk into the world as that being. And this is where the real power begins, because the universe doesn't respond to your hopes. It responds to your vibration, to your walk, to your tone, your gaze. It responds to the subtle energetic signature you carry into each moment. If, after the ritual, you step back into a mindset of lack, doubt, or smallness, you cut off the current you just opened. So the question becomes, how would the god of wealth move through your life? Not in fantasy, but in behavior, in presence, in posture. The answer isn't arrogance, it's sovereignty. It's the calm, quiet magnetism of someone who has nothing to prove and everything to give. This being doesn't rush. They move at their own pace. They don't cling. Their presence is slow, centered, and deliberate. They carry themselves with the awareness that they are the prize, because they know that wealth is not something they collect. It's something they radiate. And this changes everything. You no longer enter rooms looking to get something. You enter spaces to bless them with your energy. You're not seeking opportunities. You're the gravitational field that draws them in. The world begins to reorganize around you because you're no longer matching the vibration of lack. You're moving like Shambhala or Lakshmi or Hermes. You're moving like someone who knows that wealth doesn't live in the bank. It lives in your field. It's your breath, your voice, your decision making. You begin to speak more clearly. You say no faster. You stop leaking energy through apology or hesitation. You carry silence differently. You listen with intent. You make eye contact without flinching. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, it's not something you're performing, it's something you're remembering. And from that place, action becomes effortless. The decisions you make from this state will have a different charge. They're cleaner, they ripple further. A simple message, a shift in tone, a small offer. These things can now carry exponential influence because of who they're coming from. Reality is incredibly obedient to identity. You don't get what you want, you get what you are. And when you begin to carry the embodied presence of a wealth deity, reality conforms. It bends to your energetic certainty. You'll find that money starts appearing more often. You may start getting offered things without asking, because you've stopped broadcasting scarcity. But perhaps the most important shift is this. You stop needing proof. You no longer look for signs that it's working. You know that it is. And that knowing is what makes it work even more. The ritual creates the shift. Living it cements the signal. This is how the ancients lived, not as beggars beneath the gods, but as expressions of them. They performed the ritual, but then they walked the marketplace, led villages, governed families, all as vessels of divine presence. And so must you. Because if you stop at the cushion, you cut off the circuit. But if you rise from your meditation and move as the God would move, the ritual never ends. It becomes your posture, your baseline, your default frequency. You weren't born to chase. You weren't born to doubt yourself. You weren't born to beg reality for favors, hoping it finally turns in your direction. That's the lie. The truth, the one encoded in every sacred ritual, in every temple wall, in every whispered mantra passed from teacher to student, is this. You're not here to request abundance. You're here to channel it. The gods were never something you needed to win over. These gods are blueprints, archetypes designed to be activated, not worshipped. Every ancient ritual you've just seen wasn't created for ceremony. It was created for transformation. Lakshmi, Jambala, Kubera, Osiris, Hermes, they weren't just myths, they were maps. And those who walked those paths, who stepped into those energies, didn't just change their mindset, they changed their reality. And now, so can you. Because the moment you sit down and enter silence, the ritual begins again. The moment you breathe in power instead of fear, the shift begins. The moment you stop asking and start becoming, the current of wealth begins to flow. This is inner identity alchemy. And the moment you practice it, even once, you begin to leave behind the version of you that struggles and step into the one that commands. The world may tell you that wealth comes from hard work and logic, but the ancients knew a deeper law. Wealth responds to who you are, not what you do. You can choose who you are right now. You just remembered a sacred process, one used in secret, passed down through lineages, hidden behind layers of symbolism, language, and time. But now it's yours again. So don't just think about it. Do the ritual tonight, tomorrow, for 7 days, 30, a lifetime. Channel the God of wealth, not for power, not for ego, but to remember who you are, a being designed to overflow. I'm Rory Raza, and I want to thank you for watching. Check out my blog for more in-depth work on this topic. Link in the description. Until next time.